The notification popped up on my phone at 3:47 p.m. while I was reviewing quarterly reports for Azure Coast Holdings. Instagram notification. Mom posted a new photo. I recognized it immediately. The Azure Coast Resort booking confirmation screen. I should know. I'd owned the property for 3 years. Family vacation planning. She'd captioned it with 12 heart emojis. What she didn't include was the conversation I'd overheard through her speakerphone 30 minutes earlier. She's too poor for family vacation, Mom had explained to Aunt Linda and Aunt Carol while scrolling through resort packages. We can't afford extra rooms for failures like Sarah. She'll have to find her own accommodations if she wants to come. Smart thinking, Rebecca, Aunt Linda had agreed. Why waste money on someone who can't contribute anyway? Exactly. This trip is for successful family members only, Mom had declared. Sarah can stay home with her minimum wage lifestyle. I'd been standing in my kitchen, listening to this conversation through the thin walls of our duplex, while simultaneously reviewing the Azure Coast Resort's monthly revenue reports. The irony wasn't lost on me. 3 years ago, when the resort had been facing bankruptcy during the pandemic, I'd purchased it through my investment company for $12.3 million. The previous owners had been desperate to sell, and I'd seen the potential in the beachfront property. What my family didn't know was that their minimum wage daughter had been running a successful consulting business for nearly a decade, generating enough income to quietly build a real estate portfolio worth $47 million. The family group chat had been buzzing all afternoon with vacation excitement. Mom had created a planning document with room assignments, activity schedules, and cost breakdowns. My name appeared nowhere on the list. Sarah, Mom had texted me privately, if you want to join us for vacation, you'll need to book your own room. We can't subsidize your participation anymore. I'd responded simply, understood. Have a wonderful time. What I hadn't mentioned was that I'd been the one subsidizing their successful lifestyles for years. Dad's construction business had been failing since 2019, surviving only because of the anonymous contracts I'd arranged through my network. Mom's boutique had been hemorrhaging money until mysterious bulk orders started appearing from shell companies I controlled. My brother Marcus's law practice had been struggling until high-paying corporate clients, all my contacts, began seeking his services. They thought their recent success was due to hard work and superior business acumen. In reality, they'd been living off my secret financial support while treating me like the family charity case. The Azure Coast Resort was my favorite acquisition. The 200-room beachfront property had been renovated to 5-star standards under my direction. Every detail had been carefully designed. The infinity pools, the spa, the private beach access, the 3 restaurants. I'd personally approved every hire from the general manager to the housekeeping staff. And now my family was planning to spend their vacation there, completely unaware that their poor daughter owned every square foot of the property they were booking. The next morning I was in my home office reviewing the resort's guest reservations when I saw it. Thompson family reservation, 8 guests for suites, presidential package. They'd booked the most expensive accommodation tier, totaling $18,000 for the week. The same family that claimed they couldn't afford an extra room for me had somehow found money for the premium package. I picked up my phone and called Marcus, the resort's general manager. Good morning, Marcus. I see we have a Thompson family reservation for next week. Yes, Ms. Williams. 8 guests, 4 suites in the presidential wing. They specifically requested our most exclusive services. I need you to call the primary contact, Rebecca Thompson, and inform her that the owner has requested their reservation be cancelled immediately. Of course, any particular reason I should provide. Simply state that the owner has requested their removal. Nothing more. I'll handle it personally. 20 minutes later my phone rang. Mom's contact photo filled the screen. A selfie she'd taken at her boutique, back when she thought her business was thriving on its own merit. Sarah, she said breathlessly. You'll never believe what just happened. The Azure Coast Resort just called and canceled our entire reservation. They said the owner requested our removal. That's terrible, Mom. Did they give you a reason? No. The manager just said, owner's orders, and hung up. We've lost our entire deposit, $3,000. And it's too late to book anywhere else decent for next week. I maintained my calm tone. I'm sorry to hear that. Did you try asking them to reconsider? I called back 3 times. They won't even discuss it. The manager said the decision is final and non-negotiable. Her voice was rising with panic. Sarah, we need to find somewhere else to stay. Do you have any ideas? The irony was exquisite. The woman who'd declared me too poor for vacation was now asking for my help after being ejected from my own resort. Well, I said thoughtfully, I might know someone who could help. Let me make some calls. What I actually did was text Marcus. Please inform Mrs. Thompson that due to the owner's generosity, alternative accommodations have been arranged at the Seaside Inn for their stay. Rooms will be complimentary, but they'll need to cover their own meals and activities. The Seaside Inn was a modest 2-star property I'd purchased 6 months ago specifically for renovation. It was clean and safe but decidedly basic, the kind of place my family would normally never consider. An hour later, Mom called back ecstatic. Sarah, you're amazing. Somehow the resort manager found us alternative accommodations. It's not as fancy but it's free. How did you manage that? I know people in the hospitality industry, I said simply. The family group chat exploded with gratitude and speculation about my mysterious connections. Suddenly, the daughter they deemed too poor to include had somehow salvaged their vacation. But I wasn't finished. The next morning I called my assistant, Jennifer. I need you to arrange something for next week. I'll be staying at the Azure Coast Resort, Presidential Suite. I want full VIP treatment and I want it documented. Of course. Should I arrange for the photographer to capture your arrival? Yes. Make sure the resort's social media team posts everything. I want my family to see exactly who owns their dream vacation spot. Meanwhile, at the Seaside Inn, my family was discovering the reality of their free accommodations. The rooms were small, the amenities basic, and the breakfast continental. Mom had posted increasingly strained photos, trying to maintain the illusion of a luxurious vacation while clearly struggling with the downgrade. Having such a unique experience at this charming local property, she'd captioned a photo of her cramped room. The comments from relatives were telling, "Looks different from the photos you showed us," and "Are you sure this is the same place?" On Wednesday morning, Azure Coast Resort's Instagram account posted a series of photos. "Welcome back to our valued owner, Ms. Sarah Williams. Enjoying another perfect stay at Azure Coast's Presidential Suite." The photos showed me lounging by the private pool, dining at the exclusive owner's table, and being personally greeted by the entire management team. The caption included details about my ownership of the property and my recent expansion of the resort's amenities. My phone started ringing at 8:23 a.m. "Sarah." Mom's voice was breathless, panicked. "I just saw. Did you buy a resort?" "I own several properties, Mom. Azure Coast is one of them." "You own the resort? The one that kicked us out?" "Yes. The one you said I was too poor to afford a room at." There was a long silence. I could hear Dad and my brother talking frantically in the background. "But, how? Your job. You said you work in consulting." "I do work in consulting. My firm has been quite successful. Successful enough to acquire a $47 million real estate portfolio over the past decade." $47 million? Her voice was barely a whisper. "Yes. Including the resort you're not staying at, the hotel where Marcus works, and ironically, the construction contracts that saved Dad's business in 2020. Another silence. "Then, you saved Dad's business? Along with your boutique and Marcus's law practice? Those mysterious new clients and bulk orders? Those came from companies I control." I could hear her explaining this to the others. The background conversation grew louder, more frantic. "Sarah, we had no idea. That I was successful? Yes, I noticed. You assumed I was poor because I chose to live modestly and work quietly. You never asked about my actual career or income. But why didn't you tell us?" "Because I wanted to see how you'd treat me without knowing about my money. And I learned everything I needed to know." "We never meant." "Mom, you literally told your sisters I was too poor for family vacation, while planning to stay at my resort, using money from businesses I've been subsidizing." The call went quiet except for muffled arguing in the background. "What do you want from us?" she finally asked. "Nothing. You've made it clear that family love is conditional on financial status. So I'm removing the conditions." "What does that mean?" It means the anonymous contracts keeping Dad's business afloat end next month. The bulk orders supporting your boutique stop immediately. And Marcus's corporate clients will be informed that their retainer arrangements are terminated. You can't do that. Our businesses will fail? Probably. But according to you, they were already successful on their own merit. This shouldn't change anything. Sarah, please. I'm also pulling my investment from Uncle Robert's restaurant, Aunt Linda's real estate ventures, and the college fund I'd been building for my nephew. Since I'm apparently too poor to be part of this family. We made a mistake. No, Mom. You showed me exactly how much my family relationships are worth. And now you're seeing exactly how much your financial independence is worth. I hung up and immediately called my business manager. Patricia, I need you to execute the Thompson family withdrawal plan we discussed. All financial support terminates immediately. Send formal notices to all affected parties. Understood. Should I CC your family on the documentation? Yes. I want them to see exactly how much they've been receiving without knowing it. Within hours, the financial impacts began cascading through my family. Dad received termination notices for 3 major contracts worth $200,000 annually. Mom's boutique lost orders worth $50,000 per quarter. Marcus's law firm was informed that 5 corporate clients would not be renewing retainers totaling $75,000 annually. Uncle Robert learned that his restaurant's mysterious investor would be withdrawing support, meaning the end of the $5,000 monthly subsidies that had kept him afloat. Aunt Linda discovered that her real estate deals had been funded by loans from companies I controlled. Loans that were now being called in. The family group chat went silent. Then one by one they started calling. Dad first. Sarah, honey, I think there's been a misunderstanding about those contracts. Marcus second. Sis, my corporate clients are saying something about terminated retainers? Can we talk? Uncle Robert third. Sarah, sweetheart, my restaurant investor is pulling out. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that. Each conversation followed the same pattern. Shock, denial, bargaining, and finally, desperate pleading. They'd all assumed their recent success was due to their own efforts. None of them had questioned the sudden influx of high-paying clients and mysterious opportunities. But the most telling call came from Aunt Linda at 11:47 p.m. Sarah, I need to ask you something and I need you to be honest. Of course. How long have you been supporting all of us? About 5 years actively. I started small, helping Dad get contracts, sending customers to Mom's boutique. As my business grew, I expanded the support. Why? Because you're my family. I thought family helped each other. And we never knew? I specifically structured everything to be anonymous. I wanted you to maintain your dignity and independence. But we treated you like I was poor. Like I was a failure. Like I didn't belong. There was a long pause. Sir, we were wrong. Completely wrong. Is there any way to fix this? I don't know, Aunt Linda. You spent years making me feel worthless because you thought I had no money. Now that you know I have money, suddenly I'm worth treating with respect. It wasn't about the money. It was entirely about the money. Every cruel comment, every exclusion, every dismissive remark was based on your assumption that I was financially unsuccessful. She started crying. We're going to lose everything. Maybe. Or maybe you'll discover what you're actually capable of when you're not relying on my secret support. The calls continued for 3 days. Each family member went through the same emotional progression. Anger at being deceived, bargaining for continued support, and finally, desperate apologies. But the most surprising call came from my nephew Tyler, Marcus's 16-year-old son. Aunt Sarah? I saw the Instagram post about you owning that resort. Yes. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. About how everyone treated you. I never said anything, but I always thought it was wrong. Thank you, Tyler. That means a lot. Are you really cutting off my college fund? I paused. Tyler had always been kind to me even when his parents weren't. Tyler, your college fund wasn't connected to your parents' businesses. That money was always specifically for you. Really? Really? In fact, there's enough there for a full ride to any school you choose, plus graduate school if you want. Even after everything? Tyler, you never treated me badly. Why would I punish you for your parents' behavior? Can I ask you something else? Sure. Were you really poor or were you just pretending? I was never poor, Tyler. I just chose to live below my means and let my family make their own assumptions. That's actually pretty smart. You got to see how everyone really felt about you. Exactly. And now I know exactly where I stand with everyone. 2 weeks later, the family dynamics had completely shifted. Mom had closed her boutique after losing the bulk orders that had been keeping it profitable. Dad's construction business was scrambling to replace the terminated contracts. Marcus was working twice as hard to find new clients. But the most interesting development was their sudden flood of attention toward me. Invitations to family dinners arrived daily. Calls just to check in became frequent. Relatives who hadn't spoken to me in years were suddenly interested in my life and career. The transformation was so obvious it was almost comical. During one family dinner, my first in months, the conversation was carefully, artificially focused on my achievements. Everyone wanted to hear about my business, my properties, my success story. The same relatives who'd spent years changing the subject when I tried to discuss my work were now hanging on every word. "We're so proud of you, Sarah," Mom announced to the table. "We always knew you'd be successful." I set down my fork. "Really? Because 3 weeks ago you told Aunt Linda I was too poor for family vacation." The table went silent. "That was a misunderstanding," Mom started. "No, it wasn't. It was an accurate representation of how you all viewed me. The only thing that's changed is your knowledge of my bank account." "Sarah," Dad interjected, "family is about more than money." "You're right, Dad. It is about more than money. It's about respect, support, and unconditional love. Things I provided for all of you and things you never provided for me." "We love you," Marcus began. Do you love what I can do for you financially?" No one answered. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "I'm willing to rebuild relationships with family members who can prove they value me as a person, not as a bank account. But the financial support is permanently ended." "What do you mean, prove it?" Aunt Linda asked. "I mean demonstrate through your actions that you respect me regardless of my income. Show me that your love isn't conditional on my ability to solve your financial problems." "How?" Mom asked quietly. "That's for you to figure out. But I'll give you a hint. It starts with genuine apologies for years of dismissive treatment, and it continues with consistent respect moving forward." 6 months later, the family dynamics had settled into a new pattern. Some relationships had been rebuilt on healthier foundations. Tyler and I remained close, and he'd started working part-time at one of my properties to learn business skills. A few cousins had reached out with genuine apologies and efforts to reconnect as people, not as financial opportunities. But others had revealed their true priorities. Mom and Dad maintained minimal contact, clearly frustrated by my refusal to resume financial support. Marcus had initially tried to rebuild our relationship, but his efforts had decreased as it became clear I wouldn't be referring business to his firm. The most telling development came 8 months after the resort incident. Azure Coast Resort had been featured in Travel Plus Leisure as one of the country's top destination properties. The article included a profile of me as a successful young entrepreneur who'd built a real estate empire while maintaining a deliberately low profile. Mom called within hours of the magazine hitting stands. "Sarah, I saw the article. We need to talk." "About what?" "About forgiveness. About family. About moving forward." "I'm listening." "We made mistakes. Big mistakes. But we're family and family forgives." "You're right that family forgives. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. And it doesn't mean returning to old patterns." "What do you want from us?" "I wanted you to love me when you thought I was poor. You didn't. I wanted you to include me when you thought I had nothing to offer. You didn't. I wanted you to treat me with basic respect regardless of my perceived status. You didn't. People change. Do they? Or do they just adjust their behavior based on changed circumstances?" She was quiet for a long moment. "Sarah, what if we started over? What if we tried to build something better?" "I'm open to that, Mom. But it has to be built on honesty. No more assumptions about my finances. No more conditional love based on what I can provide. No more treating family members differently based on their perceived success." "Deal. And it has to be proven over time through actions, not just words." "I understand." Today, 2 years after the resort incident, my relationships with family members exist across a spectrum. Some have genuinely changed and rebuilt connections based on mutual respect. Others have proven that their interest in me remains primarily financial. But the most important change has been in me. I no longer feel the need to prove my worth through secret financial support. I no longer accept dismissive treatment in the name of family loyalty. And I no longer hide my success out of fear that it might change how people treat me. Because here's what I learned. People who love you conditionally will find conditions regardless of your circumstances. And people who respect you genuinely will do so whether you're rich or poor. The Azure Coast Resort still gets regular visits from family members who book standard rooms and pay their own way. They're always treated well by the staff, but they no longer receive special treatment based on their relationship to me. And sometimes when I'm sitting in my presidential suite, watching the sunset over the ocean I own, I think about that phone call when Mom asked why the owner had requested their removal. She still doesn't fully understand that the owner wasn't rejecting them because of who they were. The owner was simply treating them exactly how they'd treated her.
Keep the house. I'm done with this marriage. No papers mean no splitting assets. Marcus's message flashed on my phone screen as I stood in our home office, sorting through old boxes of his grandfather's paperwork. I didn't cry or shake. Instead, I felt strangely calm. My name is Diana. I'm 34 years old, and today I found out my husband of 8 years is leaving me for his 25-year-old yoga instructor, Ashley. The worst part? I was the one who signed him up for those yoga classes to help his back pain. I looked around the office, Marcus's grandfather's mahogany desk, the wall of family photos, and the filing cabinets filled with memories. Marcus thought he could just walk away because we never officially registered our marriage. Our wedding had been beautiful, a sunset ceremony in Hawaii with family and friends. Marcus had convinced me we didn't need legal paperwork. It's just government nonsense, he'd said. We know we're married. Young and in love, I believed him. Now I knew why he had insisted. My phone buzzed again. Ashley and I are coming tomorrow to pick up my things. Don't make this difficult. I ignored it and kept sorting through the boxes. Marcus's grandfather, Harold, had passed away recently, and as usual, I was left to handle everything. Harold had always liked me, often inviting me over for tea and telling me, "You've got a good head on your shoulders." Then I found it, a dusty old leather folder. Something about it caught my attention. When I opened it, my heart nearly stopped. A marriage certificate, our marriage certificate. Marcus and I were legally married after all. The paperwork was official, signed, and dated 8 years ago. Suddenly, I remembered something Harold had told me before the wedding. Let an old man handle the paperwork. Consider it my gift. At the time, I thought he was just helping. But now I saw the truth. He had been protecting me. My phone buzzed again. Don't get any ideas about claiming anything. We both know there's no legal binding between us. I took a picture of the certificate and sent it to my best friend Julia, who was a lawyer. Minutes later, my phone rang. "Diana, this changes everything," Julia said excitedly. "Marcus can't just leave. He legally has to split assets with you." I thought about our house, the vacation property, and all the investments Marcus had put under his name. He thought he could take everything and walk away. He was wrong. "What should I do?" I asked. "Don't tell him yet," Julia advised. "Let me check the legal details first. Then we make our move." The next morning, Marcus walked in with Ashley, both in matching yoga outfits. "Diana, I hope you packed my things." "Let's not make this ugly," he said smugly. I sat at the kitchen counter, calmly sipping my coffee. "Actually, Marcus, we need to talk about the divorce." He laughed. "Divorce? There's nothing to divorce. We never filed the paperwork, remember?" I smiled. "Are you sure about that?" Marcus hesitated. Ashley shifted uncomfortably beside him. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. I took another sip of coffee. "You might want to check with a lawyer before touching anything. It would be a shame to make a mistake." His face turned red. "Are you threatening me?" "Not at all," I said. "Just giving you some advice. Your grandfather taught me to always know the facts before making decisions." At the mention of Harold, Marcus's confidence wavered. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "Take your time," I said, standing up. "Talk to a lawyer. I'll be here when you're ready to divide our assets fairly." As I walked away, I heard Marcus whispering angrily to Ashley. I smiled to myself. My phone buzzed. A message from Julia. Got everything we need. Ready to proceed whenever you are. I looked at Harold's photo on the wall and whispered, "Thank you." Marcus had no idea what was coming, but he was about to learn that karma, and his grandfather, always had the final say. The next few days brought a storm I'd been anticipating. Marcus's lawyer called mine, then called again, his tone shifting from dismissive to concerned to downright panicked. The marriage certificate wasn't just valid, it was ironclad. Harold hadn't just filed the paperwork, he'd made sure every detail was perfectly documented. I sat in Julia's office, watching her handle a call from Marcus's latest attorney. She put it on speaker so I could hear. "My client is willing to offer a settlement," the attorney said, his voice tight. "He's prepared to be generous." Julia smiled, catching my eye. "Generous? You mean he's willing to split their marital assets fairly as required by law?" "Now, let's be reasonable," the attorney countered. "Mr. Mitchell had these assets before their arrangement. Their marriage," Julia corrected firmly. "And no, most of these assets were acquired during their 8-year marriage. I have documentation showing Mrs. Mitchell's substantial contributions to their acquisition." I thought about all the years I'd supported Marcus's career, managing our household while he climbed the corporate ladder. The houses we bought and renovated together, the investments we discussed over countless dinner tables. He'd always insisted on keeping everything in his name, for tax purposes, he claimed. The attorney cleared his throat. "My client feels betrayed. He had no knowledge of this marriage certificate." "Betrayed?" Julia's voice was sharp. "Your client participated in a legal marriage ceremony. The fact that he assumed no paperwork was filed doesn't negate his responsibilities. Would you like me to share the video of him exchanging vows?" After the call ended, Julia turned to me. "He's panicking. The prenup he thought he'd avoided by not filing paperwork? That works in your favor now. Without it, you're entitled to half of everything acquired during the marriage." I nodded, feeling a mix of satisfaction and sadness. Harold knew, didn't he? He knew Marcus would try something like this eventually. Harold Mitchell was a smart man, Julia agreed. The notes we found with the marriage certificate prove he submitted everything properly. He even paid the filing fees himself. That evening, I returned home to find Marcus sitting on our front steps, alone. "Where's Ashley?" I asked, stepping past him to unlock the door. "She's taking some time to think," he muttered. "Diana, we need to talk." I left the door open but didn't invite him in. "Now you want to talk? Not when you were texting me about taking everything." He followed me into the kitchen, running his hands through his hair, a gesture I once found endearing. "You don't understand. Ashley and I. It's real. This isn't just some fling." "No," I said, turning to face him. "You don't understand. This isn't about Ashley. This is about you thinking you could discard 8 years of marriage without consequences." "I never meant to." "To what? To hurt me? To steal everything we built together? To use a technicality to leave me with nothing?" His face reddened. "Grandpa had no right to file those papers without telling me." "He had every right," I countered. "He was protecting both of us. He knew what marriage meant. Real marriage, not just playing house until something younger came along." Marcus slumped against the counter. "Ashley left," he admitted. "When she found out about the legal issues, about having to wait for a divorce, she said she didn't sign up for this drama." I couldn't help but laugh. "No, she signed up for a man she thought was free and clear. Funny how quickly people run when they realize actions have consequences." "What do you want?" he asked, his voice tired. "What I've always wanted. Fairness. We built this life together, Marcus. I won't let you pretend those 8 years meant nothing." He looked around the kitchen we'd remodeled together, at the photos on the walls, the life we'd built. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd married. "Grandpa left me a letter," he said quietly. "In his desk. I found it yesterday." He pulled an envelope from his pocket, hands shaking slightly. "He wrote it right after our wedding. Said he filed the papers because he saw how much you loved me, how good you were for me. He wanted to make sure I couldn't ruin it with my fear of commitment." I felt tears prick at my eyes but kept my voice steady. He was a wise man. "I was so angry when I found out about the certificate," Marcus continued. "But reading his letter, he knew me better than I knew myself. He saw what I might do, what I did do." "It doesn't change anything," I said firmly. "You still chose to leave, to try to take everything." He nodded, looking more defeated than I'd ever seen him. I know, I thought you should know that Grandpa did it because he loved us both. He wanted me to be better than this. I watched as he walked toward the door, shoulders slumped. At the threshold, he turned back. I'll have my lawyer contact Julia about a fair settlement. No more games. After you left, I sat in Harold's old chair, now placed in my home office. The leather was worn soft with age, carrying the wisdom of years. I pulled out the letter Harold had left for me, found tucked inside the folder with the marriage certificate. Dear Diana, it read, if you're reading this, it means you found the certificate and likely means you need it. I've watched you love my grandson with a patience and grace he doesn't yet deserve. I hope he grows into the man worthy of that love. But if he doesn't, know that I've made sure you're protected. Not just because it's right, but because you're the daughter I never had. Never let anyone convince you that you deserve less than everything you've worked for. I folded the letter carefully, placing it back in its envelope. Tomorrow would bring more negotiations, more legal discussions about dividing assets. But tonight, I felt at peace, protected by the foresight of a man who'd seen clearly what his grandson could not. 6 months after finding Harold's hidden marriage certificate, I stood in the freshly renovated kitchen of my new home. The morning light streamed through the windows, illuminating the space I'd designed exactly as I wanted. Half of the proceeds from selling our old house had given me the freedom to start fresh. Julia sat at my kitchen island, reviewing the final divorce settlement over coffee. Everything's signed, she said, closing the folder with satisfaction. The assets have been divided fairly, just as Harold would have wanted. I smiled, thinking of the old man's photograph that now sat on my mantel. He changed everything, didn't he? Not just with the certificate, but with his letters, too. The impact of Harold's letters had rippled beyond just Marcus and me. After our story got out, 3 other women in our social circle discovered their partners had used the same no papers tactic. Harold's foresight had inadvertently helped them too, setting a precedent for challenging these unofficial arrangements. Have you heard from Marcus? Julia asked, stirring her coffee. Ashley left him for her surf instructor in Bali, I said, unable to suppress a small smile. He's been sending me texts about regret and second chances. And I'm not interested in second chances with someone who only wanted me when he had nothing better lined up. I walked to the window, looking out at my new garden. Besides, I'm too busy living my best life. It was true, the divorce settlement had given me more than just financial security. It had given me freedom. Freedom to travel, to pursue my interests, to build something that was completely mine. Last week, I'd received an unexpected package from Harold's old law firm. Inside was another letter, this one dated just weeks before his death. Dear Diana, it read, I hope you never need the protection I put in place. But if you do, know that it comes with my blessing to build a life that makes you proud. You taught Marcus about love, even if he wasn't ready to learn. Now it's time to show the world what you can do when you're standing on your own. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Harold's sister, Margaret, carrying a large box. Found these while cleaning out my attic, she said, setting the box down. Thought you should have them. Inside were photo albums and documents from Harold's early life. Pictures of him as a young lawyer, fighting for civil rights in the 60s. News clippings about cases he'd won for underdogs. Letters from grateful clients. He always fought for what was right, Margaret said, her eyes misty. Even when it wasn't popular, when he told me he'd filed your marriage certificate himself, I wasn't surprised. That was Harold, quietly making sure justice would prevail. We spent the afternoon going through the box, Margaret sharing stories about her brother's life. You know, she said, he talked about you all the time. Said you reminded him of himself. Someone who saw the best in people but wasn't afraid to stand up when it mattered. That evening after Margaret left, I added some of Harold's photos to my wall. They fit perfectly alongside my new life. A reminder that sometimes the people who impact us most profoundly are the ones who prepare us for battles we don't even know are coming. My phone buzzed with another text from Marcus. I miss our life together. I was a fool. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop to finish the book I'd been writing. A guide for women about protecting themselves legally in relationships. Harold's story was the opening chapter. A week later, I hosted a housewarming party. Friends filled my new home with laughter and warmth. Julia raised her glass for a toast. To Diana, who showed us all that karma has perfect timing, and to Harold Mitchell, who proved that sometimes our greatest allies are watching out for us even when we don't know we need them. As my guests mingled, I slipped away to my study for a quiet moment. Harold's photo seemed to twinkle at me from the wall. I touched the frame gently, thinking of all he'd set in motion with one simple act of love and foresight. "Thank you," I whispered to his image, not just for the certificate, but for showing me that true family protects each other, even across time. My new life wasn't what I'd planned when I said my vows 8 years ago on that beach in Hawaii. It was better. It was authentic, built on a foundation of self-respect and gratitude for those who help us find our strength. Harold's last letter sat framed on my desk, its final lines visible in the setting sun. "Remember, dear Diana, sometimes the best legacy we can leave is ensuring that justice finds its way to those who deserve it most. You deserved every protection I could offer, and you deserve every joy that comes your way now." I was finally ready to embrace all that joy and all the adventures yet to come. "Get some rest, darling. No one can hear you scream down here." James laughed as he slammed the basement door shut. I heard the locks clicking. The sound sent chills through me, not from fear, but from anger. "My name is Olivia Parker. I'm 28 years old, and I never thought my own husband would lock me in my basement. Just yesterday, we celebrated our 5th wedding anniversary. Now I was trapped while James planned to steal my $400 million inheritance." I heard his footsteps upstairs. He was confident, thinking he had won. The basement was soundproof. His idea when we renovated last year. I should have seen the warning signs. "You won't get away with this," I said, keeping my voice calm. James laughed. "I already have. By the time people realize you're missing, I'll have everything. Your family's fortune, the estate, everything. And you? Just a tragic accident." I sat on the cold floor, but I wasn't helpless. 3 months ago, I noticed money disappearing from our accounts. When I asked James, he had excuses. Business deals, investments. But I wasn't foolish. My father had taught me to be careful with money. So I prepared. I installed hidden cameras, set up a secret phone line, and gathered proof of James's lies. I documented every transaction, every late-night call, every meeting he thought I didn't know about. "You trust too easily, Olivia," James taunted. "Just like your father did. Did you really think I married you for love?" His words made my blood boil. My father built our family's fortune from nothing, leaving it all to me when he died. James pretended to grieve, but now I saw the truth. I heard him moving upstairs, probably trying to access my accounts. He had no idea I'd already talked to my lawyers. The inheritance wasn't as easy to take as he thought. "It must kill you," he said. "All your father's hard work is about to be mine." I thought of my father's last words, "Be careful who you trust. Money changes people." I should have listened. The basement was getting colder. James had turned off the heat. He wanted to break me, make me sign over my fortune. But he underestimated me. My watch vibrated, a message on my hidden phone. Right on time. The cameras had been recording everything. My security team was watching. "I have to step out, darling," James called. "Bank meetings, you understand. Don't try to escape." He laughed and left. I waited until I heard his car drive away. Then I pulled out my phone and texted my team. "Did you get that?" "Every word," they replied. "Police are on the way. Your lawyer has been notified." I smiled. James had no idea about the hidden exit my father had built behind the wine racks. He didn't know I had been ahead of him the whole time. Another text came. "He's heading to the airport. Should we stop him?" "No," I replied. "Let him think he's escaping. It'll be more satisfying when he's caught." Sirens grew louder. Soon this nightmare would be over. But as I sat in the darkness, I wondered, how had I missed the signs? How did I let someone betray me so completely? Maybe money didn't change people. Maybe it just revealed who they really were. I heard cars outside. Heavy footsteps. Help had arrived. James thought he was the one in control. But in the end, this was my game. And I had already won. The police found me exactly where James had left me, sitting calmly in the basement. Their flashlights lit up the room, their faces full of concern. They probably expected me to be scared and shaken. Instead, I stood up, dusted off my clothes, and walked out on my own. "Mrs. Parker," Detective Martinez said, holding a notebook. "Are you all right? Do you need medical help?" I shook my head. No, but I do need my laptop. There's something you should see. Upstairs, my house had become a crime scene. Officers were taking photos, collecting evidence. James had left in such a hurry he didn't even close his laptop. Another mistake. He's heading to the airport, I told Martinez, pulling up the security footage. Private terminal. He has a friend with a charter company. Martinez raised an eyebrow. You seem very prepared. I met his gaze. I've been watching my husband plan this for months. I clicked through files, bank statements, recorded conversations, security footage. James thought he was smart, but he never considered that I might be smarter. Martinez scrolled through the evidence, eyes widening. This is a lot. You've been collecting proof against your own husband. Since I first noticed money missing, I said. James got sloppy. He thought I wasn't paying attention. An officer called Martinez over. They had found James's burner phone, left behind in his rush to escape. Another careless mistake. My phone buzzed. A message from my security team. James spotted at private airport, trying to book a flight to the Cayman Islands. Of course. That's where he thought my family's money was. Another wrong assumption. Detective, I said you should send officers to Blackwood Private Airport. My husband is about to flee the country. Martinez was already on his radio, giving orders. I leaned back, watching everything unfold. Part of me felt numb. My marriage had been a lie. But another part, my father's daughter, felt satisfied. Mrs. Parker, Martinez asked, serious now. How long have you known about his plan? I pulled up my calendar. The first sign? 3 months ago, James started asking about my inheritance. He thought he was being subtle. But I shrugged. Let's just say I inherited more than money from my father. The detective nodded. And you didn't confront him. That wasn't the goal, I said. I needed to know how deep this went. Who else was involved? I clicked on another file. Like Charles Weber, James's so-called business partner. They've been planning this for months. Martinez's eyes sharpened. Weber? We've been investigating him for fraud. I know, I said. I have a file on him too. Want to see? For the next hour, I walked the police through everything. James's secret meetings, his plans to steal my inheritance, the evidence I had gathered. He thought he was being careful, but I had recorded every step. My phone buzzed again. A video feed from the airport. James, handcuffed, furious. He had almost escaped. Almost. Martinez hung up his radio. Your husband is in custody. He wants to talk to you. I laughed. Let me guess. He says I set him up? Exactly, Martinez said. I clicked on one last file. Then he won't like this. A video played. James and Weber in my home office discussing their plan. How they'd lock me in the basement, force me to sign everything over, make my disappearance look like an accident. James's voice was clear, confident. Martinez watched, stunned. Your cameras caught all this. My father always said knowledge is power, I said. James never learned about the security in this house. He was too busy thinking about money. An officer brought in a box of evidence, James's hidden safe. Inside were fake documents, power of attorney, a forged will, proof of his plan. Mrs. Parker, Martinez said, closing his notebook. We have enough to charge him, but we'll need you to give a statement tomorrow. I nodded, already dialing my lawyer. The legal battles were just beginning, trials, a divorce. But I had my home back. I was safe. As the police left, I walked through my house, turning on lights. In the kitchen, I saw James's half-finished coffee cup from this morning. Just hours ago, he had been here, confident he had won. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from my security team. All accounts locked. System secure. Continue monitoring? Yes, I typed. And thank you. My father would be proud. I looked out the window. The last police car drove away. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the garden. James had tried to trap me in that basement. He thought he had control. But sometimes the darkest places show us our true strength. 1 year later, I sat in a courtroom, watching as James was led away in handcuffs after receiving his sentence. 15 years for attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy. His once confident smirk had disappeared, replaced by a haunted look as reality finally set in. Charles Weber had turned on him months ago. accepting a plea deal in exchange for testifying. James's perfectly orchestrated plan had crumbled, just like our marriage, leaving nothing but evidence of his crimes. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered, hungry for details about the wealthy heiress who outsmarted her murderous husband. I walked past them, head held high, ignoring their questions. My lawyer handled the press while I slipped into my waiting car. "Home?" my driver asked. "Actually," I said, checking my watch, "let's go to the foundation." The Elizabeth Parker Foundation, named after my mother, had become my focus over the past year. Instead of letting James's betrayal break me, I channeled my energy into creating something meaningful. We helped women escape abusive relationships, provided resources for financial literacy, and funded domestic violence shelters. The building that housed the foundation was modern, filled with light and hope. As I walked through the doors, Sarah, my program director, greeted me with a warm smile. "How did it go?" she asked, falling into step beside me. 15 years, I replied. Weber's testimony sealed it. We entered the main meeting room, where a support group was just finishing. Women from all walks of life, each with their own story of survival. Some nodded in recognition as I passed. They knew my story, and I knew theirs. "The new shelter opens next month," Sarah reported, handing me a file. "We're already at capacity for applications." I scanned the documents, pride swelling in my chest. Each woman we helped was a victory, a light pushing back against the darkness that men like James tried to create. My phone buzzed. A message from Detective Martinez. "Thought you'd want to know. Weber gave us names of 3 other men involved in similar schemes. We're building cases now." I smiled, remembering Martinez's words from a year ago. Sometimes one case breaks open dozens more. He'd been right. James and Weber's arrests had exposed a network of fraudsters targeting wealthy women, and one by one, they were falling. Later that evening, I returned to my home, not the house I'd shared with James, but a new place, one without memories of betrayal. The security system welcomed me with soft peeps, cameras tracking my movement out of habit more than fear now. In my office, I opened my father's old leather journal. Its pages were worn, filled with his wisdom and advice. One passage caught my eye. "True strength isn't in what we have, but in how we use it to help others." A knock at the door interrupted my reading. It was Emma, my younger sister, carrying takeout and wearing a determined expression. "No wallowing allowed," she announced, setting down the food. "I know today was rough, but we're celebrating." "Celebrating what?" I asked, closing Dad's journal. "You, dummy. Your strength, your foundation, everything you've built from this mess." She started unpacking containers. "Remember what you told that first support group? Every ending is a chance for a new beginning." I smiled, remembering that day. I'd been terrified to share my story, but seeing the hope it gave others made it worth it. "Fine," I conceded, reaching for the food. "But no toast this time. Last time you gave a speech, it lasted 30 minutes. "That was one time," she protested, laughing. As we ate, Emma updated me on her life. Her residency at the hospital, her plans for the future. Normal, everyday things that reminded me life went on after trauma. "Dad would be proud, she said softly. "Not just of how you handled James, but of what you're doing now. The foundation, helping others. It's exactly what he would have wanted." I nodded, feeling tears prick at my corners of my eyes. "I just wish," I started. "He could see it." Emma finished. "He can. Trust me." After Emma left, I stood at my window, looking out at the city lights. The foundation's latest campaign video was playing on a billboard in the distance. "Your story isn't over. It's just beginning." My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Sarah. "Just got a call." 3 more women came forward after hearing about the verdict. "They're ready to talk." I smiled, already planning tomorrow's meetings. James had tried to lock me in the darkness, thinking it would break me. Instead, it had shown me my purpose, helping others find their light. The basement that was meant to be my tomb had become the foundation for something bigger than myself. Every woman we helped, every story we shared, every life we changed, it was all part of turning darkness into light. My father had been right about money changing people, but he'd also been right about something else. True strength comes from how we use our power to help others. James had never understood that, but I did. And that understanding had made all the difference. Standing there in my new home, surrounded by the life I'd built from the ashes of betrayal, I felt nothing but peace. James had tried to write my ending, but instead he'd only opened the door to my beginning. And what a beginning it was. "Get out. This is my son's house," Margaret shouted, her face red with anger as two locksmiths changed the front door locks. I stood in the driveway, dirt on my knees from gardening, too shocked to speak. My mother-in-law had always disliked me, but this was a new low. She had waited until my husband James was deployed overseas to lock me out. "You have 1 hour to pack," she said coldly, tapping her fancy watch. "Anything left behind belongs to my son." I'm Alex, 32 years old, and I never thought I'd be thrown out of my own home by my husband's mother. She had spent years trying to convince James that I wasn't good enough for him. One of the locksmiths gave me a sympathetic look. "Take your time," he whispered, but Margaret shot him a glare, shutting him up. I stayed calm as I walked inside. Margaret followed, making sure I didn't take anything she considered valuable. "I told James he should have made you sign a prenup," she sneered. "But at least the house is only in his name." I didn't respond. She had no idea about the legal papers James and his father had arranged before his father passed away. "You were never right for him," she continued. "A small-town teacher. James needs someone with status." I picked up a wedding photo of James and me, laughing on our special day. Margaret snatched it from my hands. "Family photos stay," she said smugly. "You're not family anymore." I just smiled to myself. The real wedding album was hidden where she'd never find it. Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from James. "Morning, beautiful. Signal's bad here, but I love you. Hope Mom's keeping you company." Oh, she was keeping me company, all right. Margaret smirked. "Don't contact him. I already told him you've been bringing men over, letting the house go to ruin. He won't believe a word you say." I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. James knew me too well to fall for her lies. Besides, he'd notice if I missed our weekly video call. Margaret, thinking she had won, went on. "I already called a realtor. The house is too big for one person. James can buy something more suitable when he's back, with someone better suited for him." I finished packing, taking a final look around the bedroom James and I had shared for 8 years. Margaret didn't notice me running my hand along the back of the dresser, checking that something important was still safely hidden. "I called you a taxi," she said, practically shoving me out. "Your car doesn't belong in this neighborhood." As the locksmith finished, I saw him slip some paperwork into his pocket, probably proof of who had authorized the lock change. That might be useful later. As my taxi arrived, Margaret stood by the door, talking loudly on the phone. "Yes, the house will be available for viewing next week. The previous occupant is finally gone." I put my suitcase in the taxi and turned to her with a calm smile. "Good luck with the sale, Margaret." She frowned, expecting me to cry, beg, or cause a scene. Instead, I waved and left. She had no idea I was ready for this. I had prepared for years, keeping records, hiding important documents, and planning for the day she'd try something like this. And most importantly, she had no clue about the promise James's father had made before he died. The taxi driver glanced at me. "You okay?" I smiled. "I'm fine, just handling some family business." As we drove off, I saw Margaret removing my wind chimes, trying to erase every trace of me. Let her try. She was about to learn the hard way that she hadn't won at all. I had 1 week before she put the house on the market, 1 week to turn the tables. That was more than enough time. Kate's guest room became my safe space as I put my plan into action. 3 days after Margaret locked me out, I sat at the kitchen table, sorting through a stack of documents I had saved over the years. "I still can't believe she actually changed the locks," Kate said, handing me a cup of coffee. "Doesn't she know that's illegal?" I smiled. Margaret never worries about what's legal. She only cares about what she can get away with. And James still doesn't know. "Our video call is tomorrow," I said. I wanted to have all the proof ready first. Kate picked up one of the papers and gasped. "Is this what I think it is?" I nodded. James's father's final gift to us. He knew exactly what Margaret was like. The day before he passed away, he called us into his study while she was at yoga. He had everything planned. I remembered that day clearly. Robert, James's father, sitting behind his desk, weak but determined. He had handed us a folder filled with legal documents, including the house deed. "My wife means well," he had said, "but she always tries to control James. This house should belong to you both, not be something she can use against you." We had signed the papers then and there. The house was transferred to both James and me, with a rule that it couldn't be sold without both of our signatures. Margaret had been too busy with her social events to notice. I glanced at my phone and opened an email from the locksmith. As expected, he had sent proof that Margaret had changed the locks illegally. "What about the realtor?" Kate asked. "I called her this morning," I said. Once I showed her the house documents, she was very helpful. Margaret has a reputation, it seems. The realtor had been shocked to learn Margaret tried to sell the house without proper paperwork. She immediately pulled out of the deal but sent me copies of all her messages with Margaret first. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Sullivan. "That utility guy just left. I told him everything, and he took lots of notes." I had asked Mrs. Sullivan to keep an eye on the house. Margaret needed to switch the utilities into her name, which meant the fraud department would now be involved. Kate shook her head in amazement. "You thought of everything." "I had 8 years to prepare," I said. "Margaret's been trying to get rid of me since I married James. I learned to document everything." Then my phone rang. It was the family lawyer who had helped with the house transfer. "Alex, we have a problem. Margaret just tried to file paperwork saying James gave her power of attorney before his deployment." I smirked. "Let me guess. The signature doesn't match the one on our house papers?" "Not even close," he said. "She's getting desperate. Should I contact the DA's office?" "Not yet," I replied. "Let's see what she tries next." After hanging up, I turned to Kate. She's panicking. Losing the realtor must have shaken her. What's next? I checked my calendar. Video call with James tomorrow at 10 a.m. Once he knows what's going on, we move to phase 2. The rest of the day, I prepared. I gathered statements from neighbors, emails from a realtor, and the fraud report from the utility company. Everything was neatly organized, ready to present. That evening, Margaret made her next move. My phone buzzed with her messages. "You're making a fool of yourself. James never loved you. He was just too nice to say it. If you leave now, I won't press charges for the things you stole. I know what you're doing. It won't work." I forwarded each message to my lawyer without replying. Margaret was realizing she couldn't sell the house and was grasping at straws. Later that night, I sat on Kate's porch, looking at the stars and thinking about James. We had been through so much together: deployments, family drama, loss. Margaret had never understood our bond. My phone buzzed with an alert from our home security system. Margaret was at the house, carrying out boxes. I pulled up the camera feed and saw she was taking photo albums and family mementos. "Should we stop her?" Kate asked. I shook my head. "Those are just copies. The real ones are in our safety deposit box. Let her think she's erasing me. It'll make tomorrow more interesting." I watched Margaret struggle with the boxes, a flicker of pity crossing my mind. She had spent her life trying to control everything. Now she was losing it all. Tomorrow's call with James would change everything. Margaret thought she had won. She had no idea her perfect plan was about to fall apart. At exactly 1,000 hours, James's face appeared on my laptop screen. Despite the grainy video quality, I could see his concerned expression immediately. "Alex, what's going on? Mom's been sending me strange messages about you abandoning the house and stealing things." I tried calling her, but she keeps making excuses. I took a deep breath. "Your mother changed the locks while I was gardening. She kicked me out 4 days ago." His face darkened. "She did what?" Calmly, I shared my screen and began showing him the evidence: the locksmith's documentation, security camera footage, Margaret's threatening texts, and the realtor's correspondence about the attempted illegal sale. "She told me you've been bringing men to the house," James said, his voice tight with anger. "I knew she was lying. You'd never do that. But I never thought she'd go this far." "There's more," I said, pulling up the power of attorney documents. "She tried to forge your signature." James ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache. "I'm requesting emergency leave. This has to stop." "Actually," I said, allowing myself a small smile, "I have everything under control. Remember what your father did before he passed away." Understanding dawned on his face. "The property transfer. Mom never knew about that, did she?" "No, she didn't. And right now, she's at the house removing our photos and mementos, thinking she's destroying our only copies." James shook his head. All these years, Dad knew exactly what she might do. That's why he insisted on the transfer. He loved you, I said softly. He wanted to protect us from exactly this situation. A notification popped up on my phone. The security system showing Margaret arriving at the house with more boxes. Ready to end this? I asked James. More than ready. 20 minutes later, I pulled into our driveway, Kate beside me for moral support and as a witness. Margaret's expensive SUV was parked haphazardly across the front lawn, her frustration evident even in her parking. I walked up to the front door and rang the doorbell, Kate recording everything on her phone. Margaret yanked the door open, her perfectly coiffed hair now disheveled. "How dare you come back here? I'll call the police." "Actually," I said, holding up my phone, "James is on the line. He'd like to talk to you." Her face paled as I switched to video chat. James's face appeared, his military bearing in full effect. "Mother," he said, his voice stern. "Stop what you're doing and let my wife into our home." "James, darling," Margaret stammered, "I was just trying to protect your interests while you're away. She's not good enough for you, she never was. The house belongs to Alex and me," James cut her off. "Dad made sure of that before he died. Every document you tried to forge, every lie you told, it's all documented. You have exactly 1 hour to leave before we file charges." Margaret's composure cracked completely. "Your father would never go behind my back. He knew how important family legacy is." "He did," I said quietly. "That's exactly why he did it." I held up the original property deed, watching as Margaret's eyes widened in recognition of her late husband's signature. All her careful plans, her manipulations, her attempts to erase me, none of it mattered now. "I'll expect your keys on the front step," I said firmly. "All copies, and Margaret? The photos and mementos you've been removing? Those were all duplicates. We learned long ago not to leave anything irreplaceable where you could find it." An hour later, I stood in our living room, watching through the window as Margaret's SUV disappeared down the street. The house felt different somehow, lighter, as if a shadow had finally been lifted. "I've arranged for military police to check on you regularly until I'm home," James said through the video chat. 3 more months, then we'll deal with everything else together." I touched the screen, wishing I could hold his hand. "I miss you." "I miss you too. And Alex, I'm so proud of how you handled this. Dad would be too." After ending the call, I walked through the house, restoring our photos to their rightful places. In his father's old study, I found one last surprise, a letter from Robert dated just before his death. "Dear Alex," it read. "If you're reading this, Margaret finally showed her true colors. I'm sorry for all the years of difficulty she caused you. But I knew you were strong enough to handle it, strong enough to protect the family James and you have built. She never understood that real family isn't about social status or control. It's about love, trust, and standing together against whatever comes. Take care of my son, and take care of yourself. You were always the daughter I wished for." I placed the letter in our family album, next to the real wedding photos and the property deed. Margaret had spent years trying to break us apart, never realizing she was only making us stronger. 3 months wasn't so long to wait. James would come home, and we would rebuild whatever Margaret had tried to destroy. But this time, there would be no more power plays, no more manipulation, no more trying to erase what we had built together. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about standing your ground and protecting what matters most.